Hey everyone! So today we're going to be doing a little bit of the what's and why's about resumes and how to create a resume that will really show your transferable skills and your strengths and accomplishments in a concise one-page manner. Um, so yeah, everyone make sure that you have your resume in front of you, but if you don't have a resume developed yet, that's fine. This will help you create that first resume as well. And I also have some notes over here, so don't mind if I look over there. So to start out, what is a resume? So a resume is very concise, to the point, kind of, I hate to say boring, but it's not a place to add a lot of fluff or a lot of your voice. It's just things of what you've done, how long you've done it, and the skills that you obtained while you were there. So starting off, why are they important? So the goal of a resume is to get you to that next step, which is an interview. And that interview is where you can show your personality and your voice and tell your story. So that's what we're trying to get you to with a good resume. But this is just trying to get you through the pile, however many that may be. It could be 10, it could be hundreds or thousands. So just trying to make yourself stand out. And the crazy thing is that recruiters really only look at a resume for 15 to 20 seconds. That could be more or less due to the amount of applicants, but it's really not a long process. So you have to make things very concise and try to quantify as many things as you can so that each bullet point in each line actually says something of value rather than just trying to take up space. Okay, so to make your resume stand out, you should follow a few simple rules. First off, make sure that your formatting is correct. You can use a color or maybe like one color depending on what industry you're in. If you're in like advertising, definitely should be creative, but if you're in computer engineering, you could stick to something a little bit more traditional. You want to make sure that your font is 10 to 12 point font, and any professional font is fine, like Calibri or Times New Roman. And you want to tailor your resume to each job that you're applying for. It's not very beneficial to have one general resume that you submit and blast out to everything because it might not be, relevant to what you're applying for. So I say have one long master resume on your computer. It can be 5 pages or 10 pages of everything you've ever done. And then for each thing that you apply for, kind of cut and paste what's relevant to that job. I mean, if you're a freshman in college, you might not have, enough things to even fill one page, and that's fine. But with time, you'll have some experiences, and not everything needs to go on your resume. Just things that you feel like are relevant, show a transferable skill you felt like you had a very good impact in. So don't feel like if you're cutting one thing off of your resume that you're not going to get the position. No, that's not true. Just make sure that you're including the most relevant information. So also, we want to list things by reverse chronological order, so from the most recent to the least recent, with your experiences and leadership and involvement. Or there's another option. You can do it by relevance, like for the job description, what's most relevant to this job, down to what's least relevant, but make sure that you stay consistent throughout. So if you start with reverse chronological, you continue that for the full resume, and if you start with the relevance, you are consistent throughout. Yeah, in a resume, this is the most common question probably. Does it have to be one page? Yes, it has to be one page unless you are like a PhD student applying for research or applying for a teaching position and you have, published works and you have seminars that you've done. But if you're applying for the field, it's a reason for people to throw your resume away if it's over one page. So don't do that unless they ask for a CV, which then can obviously be longer than one page. Okay, let's see. That's it. Okay, so now the most important thing about a resume I would say is also the bullet points, because that's like the meat and bones of a resume. That says what you really did, what you accomplished, your results of your job and your hard work. So you really want to put time and effort into those bullet points. So for each experience you've had, you want to have at least 2 to 3 bullet points explaining your roles, responsibilities, and accomplishments. And you definitely want to focus on your accomplishments, because that shows, a result, like why did you do something. So to set up the bullet point, we have a format. So start with an action verb. It doesn't have to be a sentence. It doesn't start with I or me or my. Start with an action verb like collaborated, constructed, developed. Then the task, so what you did, and then why you did it, the result. That's the most important part, because that shows the accomplishment. So if I was a tutor, it could be like develop lesson plans for 5 students to ensure they understood Common Core math curriculum. So that's better than just saying tutored 5 students, why did you do that? So dig deep, even if you feel like, okay, I did it because it was my job. That's not a good enough reason. You want to pull out what transferable skills you learned, like developing a curriculum and working with students, grading and constructing their homework. So ask yourself things like, what did I accomplish? How did I do this? How many people did I work with? And then also be sure to quantify if you can. Saying how much, how many, and how often is a great way to show recruiters the scale of what you did. If you planned an event that 1,000 people came to, put that on there. Or even if it's less, that's a lot different than planning an event that 7 people came to. So that's how you create a strong bullet point with that format: action, verb, task, result. Try to implement that in every single bullet point and try to quantify as much as you possibly can. So like I mentioned, action verbs, so instead of helped, you could say collaborate, and instead of taught, you could say mentored, something like that. You can Google action verbs and hundreds will come up. So just try to use those instead of repeating the same words. Don't repeat the same words. And weak ones like helped or worked, those are really overused. So try not to use those. And also how to set up a resume. You're gonna want to include things like your name, your contact information. An objective statement is optional, so I'll go into that in another blog post. But your education, experience, leadership and involvement, skills, research, extracurricular stuff, those are all options. Obviously, you don't have to have all of those headings if they don't apply. Don't put awards on there if you don't have any, or if you just have one award that was kind of weak and years ago, you could probably take that whole heading out just to keep room for more relevant things. And this should go without saying, but don't include very personal things like your social security number or your birth date or your marital status or hobbies. That hobbies you can talk about in an interview or a cover letter if they relate to the job, but a resume is pretty much cut and dry what you've done. So that's not included on a resume. As well as references, those will be attached somewhere else if an employer asks for them, but they don't go on your resume. And also don't include a photo of yourself unless it's necessary for your industry, like if you were in the theater industry or maybe news broadcasting. But other than that, that just opens up space for discrimination. So it's not very good to do. Okay, so now starting with the heading at the top of your resume, there's 2 ways you could do it. You could do it like this, where you do your name and then your phone number, address, and email. That's more concise if you have a lot of things to fit on your resume. But if you don't have a lot of things on your resume, you could do it like this, where it takes up about 5 lines instead. So your name, your email, your LinkedIn, if you have an up-to-date LinkedIn. I will show you guys how to customize your URL for LinkedIn, so it's not like a bunch of numbers that people are never going to type in. It'll be something that makes sense with your name or whatever. Then your phone number and your address. So these are 2 options depending on how much space you want your contact information to take up. Then we're going to go to education. So for education, you want to include your degree. So you're going to write it out fully, and you're not going to put like what your major is. You're just going to put what your degree is. So Bachelor of Science in Telecommunication, for example. then your university and the location of that university. Then if you have a minor, if you don't, that's okay. Then if you have a study abroad, you could put it there. If you have relevant coursework that you'd like to put up there, like 4 to 6 classes that are really relevant to what you're applying for, that are higher level, you could include that under there as well. And then right here on the right hand side, you will put your graduation, expected graduation, so May 2019 for example. You don't have to put anything else, you'll just put when you're graduating, even if you haven't graduated yet. And then your GPA is optional. Just make sure you put it at a 4.0 because some schools do use a 10-point scale. But yeah, GPA is optional and just only include it if it's gonna help you, not hurt you. If places really do care about your GPA, they'll ask, but usually in the field, they're not super interested in it. Then last off, this is how we set up pretty much everything else, like experience and leadership and involvement. You'll do your position in bold, the organization, and then 2 to 3 bullet points explaining your roles, responsibilities, and accomplishments. So 2 to 3 bullet points in that format: action, verb, task, result, like we talked about. The position, organization. Then on the right hand side where all the dates are aligned, you'll do the month and year through the month and year. I made a mistake and it's not all on one line, but you'll want to put it all on one line. So yeah, 2 to 3, it will look like that, and then you'll just go to the next position, 2 to 3, and the next position for how many you can fit on there. So that is the basics of a resume. So if you have any questions or concerns, just leave them in the comments below, and I will link anything in the description box that's necessary. Thanks for watching.